All right. Well, I'd like to officially welcome everyone to Ideas Unleashed, Knowledge Management on the Go with the Brain. My name is Shelley Haydock, and I'm actually just supporting and co-hosting with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions, who's really going to get in and show you some very interesting information, jujitsu, and all kinds of things to like aggregate content on mobile, on your desktop, wherever it is you need to be. And Matt, I don't know if you have any words of wisdom before we kick things off.
We've got a wide variety of different examples to share with
Mhm.
you today, different platforms, different ways to get data into the brain, and the data that we're bringing in covers a wide spectrum as well, because no one collects the exact same type of data. You may be researching, where to buy a boat. Maybe you're researching, the next greatest technology in cryptocurrency for the US. And so we've got a wide variety of different topics to cover today. And if someone would like to see us research something, then bring it quickly into a brain on a particular topic, let us know in the QA panel. We'd be interested to hear about that.
All right, great. Well, I'm going to start by laying a little bit of a foundation, especially for some of our newer users, about just a space for idea management, because that's really what we're talking about today, cultivating a dynamic, flexible, fluid space for you to organize all your ideas. So this particular thought, I'm starting on an idea in action, because there's nothing more powerful than an idea in action. It's literally the start, the genesis of every great project, every innovation. So here we are. Pieces of information in the brain are what we call thoughts. And a thought can represent any type of digital information, but a thought foremost is your thought. So if you have an idea in the brain, you can just start typing. So if I have my next great idea, here I go. I've just got that in. And a lot of people like to think about notes. So in addition to my thought, I can take notes. This is going to be great. So there's my note. Very simple, just want to level set. And as we connect and build our ideas, we realize that no idea is ever static, no idea is ever isolated, and it can all be connected in the brain. So we're going to talk about these connections and how to visualize these very crucial information relationships so that you can innovate, increase understanding, all that wonderful stuff. So in order to get ideas on the go, you kind of need a trusted place for you to put those ideas. And that's where the brain comes in. So I'm going to go to an area in this brain called my thinking space. And before we start talking about web clipping and drag and drop and all that wonderful stuff that you can do so easily, so simply in the brain, you want to develop a thinking space, a canvas for where all these wonderful ideas that are in your head grow and that you can capture anytime, whether you're on the plane on your phone or sitting at your desk, on a Friday afternoon. So in this particular thinking space, I just have a few thoughts that we found have worked in general for many of our clients. Your thinking space might be mostly about your company. Maybe it's mostly about your team. So in this case, when I'm thinking about Brigitte or Matt or what I'm collaborating, and I've got my section here, so I can come in and click on Matt and take a note or add a document. And Matt can be connected to anything else. If Matt is doing some amazing things that are going to affect my customer service, I'm going to make a connection. So when I'm thinking about customer service and integrating information there, there's Matt. So again, you can also think of your thoughts as idea buckets. I mean, if you want to be very traditional, you can also think of them as folders, literally buckets for stuff. So your goals, what are your aspirations? What are you thinking about? Is it marathon training? Is it lowering your blood sugar? All that stuff. So all of a sudden, when I see an article on lowering my blood sugar on the news, I don't have time to read it. Zoom, it goes right into the brain. So I've got sort of a nice framework to get those ideas into the right spots. I also like my inspirations. I love different typography, calligraphy, architecture. new technologies I'm tracking. You can, all kinds of things. That's another great area. And you might think to yourself, well, I have this in my head. Why do I need it in my brain? Well, you're going to forget. You're a busy person and you're only human. So, what we're trying to do is augment all those powerful ideas and these thoughts and also offload. So, if you have a million different projects that you're working on, the brain lets you bring it all in one place and it can retrieve it when you need it. So, for instance, if I want to go ahead and do a search on my stocks, I'm just going to start typing in first couple letters of stocks. And you can see I've got my search. I can look if it's my stock analysis, my creating a stable stock portfolio. So this is called instant idea activation. A lot of this is going to be how you capture idea in this seminar, but I also want to talk about how to activate an idea. So I haven't really thought about my stocks for a while. You know, summer's starting, busy traveling, but you know what? Something popped up. I saw something on the news. So I'm activating that thought and I'm thinking about how to create my stable stock portfolio. Just one idea, something else. I put my renovations on hold, but all of a sudden, my contractor calls. We're having a problem with our cottage on the West Coast. Boom, I'm in renovations. So, in addition to creating thoughts and capturing them, you can actually recall and activate these thoughts at any one time. And so that's sort of the foundation and the whole picture on using the brain as your ultimate memory recall tool. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to pass presenter to Matt so that we can get into the nitty gritty of how to use our web clipper, how to drag and drop files, and do all that kind of stuff that's really going to power your ideas. We're starting on
As
sourdough. I love
as
it.
I
I love
said,
it. I
as
love
I
it.
said, we've
Okay.
got a lot of different topics. So this is my real brain. This is, my brain that's all about me. Shelley used
Nice.
such great keywords in her description of the brain, offloading all of that data into a trusted source. That's exactly what the brain does for me. Yeah, I'm a bit of a sourdough nut. Many folks are these days. It seems like a popular thing. Um, I'm always trying new recipes. I'm always experimenting. And I'm collecting knowledge and data. And Shelley again said, you're only human. Would my own brain remember these dozens now of different recipes that I have? And this is just bread. I also like to cook and do other, projects and hobbies and interests. There's no way I could honestly keep track of all of that in my organic brain. I need to get it into a trusted source. And sometimes I need to do that quickly. That's what today is all about, capturing all of that knowledge while you're on the go. And so I'll share with you that when I am browsing the web and I happen to find a recipe that I'm interested in, picture looks great. Information looks great. There's a couple of, tweaks in this particular recipe that I've never thought of before. The whole process. I don't have time to read through it all, but I am certainly going to try this in the future. I've got my brain open. I can just grab this web page and you click and drag from the address bar. Now, this is option number one of the many different options we'll be sharing with you today. I can simply grab my the icon in the address bar of my browser, not the tab itself, and drag and drop right into the brain. Creates a new thought, beginner sourdough. There it is. And it loads right up in the brain's built-in browser as well. So I can start clicking and scrolling through this particular recipe in my brain. And I'll do that one more time with another recipe. I've got many different web pages to choose from here today. Again, a great recipe. And I look down and bakers use these things called baker's percentages. And the baker's percentages here are a little bit different than anything I've ever tried. Once again, very interesting. So great. I click and drag and bring it into the brain, but I'm going to go one step further. This is a really long article. You can see I'm scrolling through this article to get down to the little section that I want. I could make the recipe just from this chunk alone that I'm seeing on the screen. So I want the whole recipe. I want the whole web page because I'm interested in the story behind it and the techniques and extreme high hydration and what that does for you and so forth. I like to educate myself a little bit on this topic. But this is really what I'm after. To make the bread, I need this. So I'm going to select it. I'm just going to copy that onto my clipboard. I hit Control C on my keyboard. And I'm going to this thought, which was my best sourdough recipe. Again, The recipe itself loads up right there in the content area of the brain. I'm going to close the preview of that web attachment that I have on this thought, and I'm going to paste right there into the note. The brain formats the table that I copied from in the note area of the brain. I can add my own notes down below. So these numbers seem pretty high, 852 grams of flour plus another 94. You're over 900 grams of flour. Maybe that makes 2 loaves of bread. So try having the recipe. So just a little note to myself down there so I can add my own content. The notes in the brain are, as Shelley mentioned, it's just a great way to capture ideas and information. It's not always a document you're after. Sometimes it's just a thought or some text or some numbers that you want to preserve. And the notes in the brain can become an ongoing, journal for that topic. I've got other recipes here. I'm sure if I click on some other thoughts, I've got my own notes about, their baker's percentages, how it worked out for me and so forth. I then develop another thought with my own variation of that recipe and other related videos and so on. So there you can see it starts becoming more than just a collection, data storage. It becomes an actual knowledge base. So I'm linking to other related pieces of information, even if it's on something as simple as baking some sourdough bread. So we'll get into something a little bit more technical there. Then next on my list of different web pages that I've recently found that are interesting, I'm browsing around and I find a solar installations, installing solar panels, a little calculator. Well, my business has been thinking about installing solar panels on the roof over time, save energy in the future potentially. Is it worth the initial upfront investment? There's a lot of research to do here. So I want to bring this into my brain. Since I have my brain open, I'll do a quick search for installing solar panels. Now, I happen to be in my own recreational brain, but as you can see, the search results, and Shelley showed us earlier, you can search for any thought, any note, any word or PDF attachment you have in your brain. But beyond that, the brain is also searching all the other brain databases that you have access to. And that's one of the great features of the brain 14 in particular, is this cross-brain searching. I'm in my recreational brain where I'm keeping track of recipes and woodworking and bicycles and so on. And if I just happen to do a quick search on something related to a different brain, I can still find what I'm looking for. So I've just saved a lot of time. I don't have to open up several different brains, and I've got many different brain databases to find that one thought that I'm looking for. There it is, installing solar panels, and that is in my eSolutions brain. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to launch this specific brain and go directly to this particular thought in that brain as well. And here I'll just click on the little plus tab that you can see at the top of the app, and that opens up my brain list. So these are all of the different brain databases that I've created or that I have access to, or in a team brain environment, brains that have been shared with me and so forth. So as you can see, I've got a lot of different brain databases, huge time saver to be able to do one search and find wherever the instance of that phrase or word or what have you shows up in any of the different brains that you have access to. So I go right to the thought, and this falls under future investments, under operations. So in my company, I'm looking at, hey, down the road, what are some other technologies that are going to be interesting to us? What's going to be useful to us? What's going to make us successful and relevant as a company in the future? So the fourth industrial revolution, I'm looking into obviously AI and cryptocurrency, but also nanotechnology and ubiquitous computing and so forth. So a lot of different things that I'm just keeping myself fresh and interested in and up to date on. And one of them was installing solar panels. So information on the go. I found one web page that I really like that's going to get me started. And now it's back to Google, right, to start searching and finding more information on installing solar panels. That's going to take some time. I need to jumpstart this particular project. I want to know more about, the costs involved, the longevity, the success rates, and so forth. There's a lot of research to do. And what am I not even thinking about? I've never installed solar panels or had them, maintenance over time, and additional costs of parts that I might not be considering, framework, and so forth. Okay, let's jumpstart this by using the AI button here in the brain. Above the Plex, we've got an AI button, and I'm not going to go into all the details here since we're information on the go. I'm quickly just going to leave the default settings and generate a new thought structure on the topic of installing solar panels. There were two buttons down there. One was to create a thought structure, and the other was to create just a grouping of child thoughts. If I just want, 10 or 20 thoughts on a particular topic, I select that other option. I selected to go a little bit more in depth. So as you can see, I can review this content first. So I've got accept, redo, and discard. And as you can see down below, all of the thoughts that it created are being highlighted right now. So I can click around and review and maybe delete, scaling the system over time. Yes, I might not install enough. I'll need to do more regulatory changes. There's a lot of helpful information in here. I'm going to start right here, prepping for this project. This is going to be a great area for me to start assessing my energy needs. This all looks really good. I'll accept these changes. My project already has, I've already got one foot in the door. I've got a nice little outline of what needs to be researched next. And if I want at any time, I can add additional information, either a thought structure on a new topic further down in this structure, or just go over to the note, accessing energy needs under the context of installing new solar panels. So I'm going to click on the AI button in my note, and I'll generate a note. And here I will use one of the other options. So assessing energy needs, that's a very general phrase. The brain might not know if I'm assessing my energy needs for, my pool or my air conditioning or what have you. This is under the topic of installing solar panels. So I set the context thought, installing solar panels, and it looks like at the parents above this thought for, the sort of context of what you're trying to create. And I'll generate a note with those settings. So assessing energy needs for installing solar panels. And this is what I need to do from here. It's not me typing. I can't type that fast. That is the brain's AI hard at work there. And once again, I've got some really thorough and even a nice conclusion there of all the data that I need to start researching. I'll go ahead and accept these changes. And this project is already picking up speed and is underway. So I've created AI thoughts. I've created an AI notes. And I want to take you to the next step of getting data into the brain. And that's when you discover something and you don't even have the brain open. So I'm browsing the web. We all browse the web on different topics. We're shopping online or what have you. And I come to a particular article in Forbes that I really like, the 10 tech trends that will transform your world. Well, this is really, really interesting. And ubiquitous computing is right there at the top. So I actually want to attach this, since I've got a nice article now on what ubiquitous computing is, into that ubiquitous computing thought in my brain. But remember, I don't have the brain open. I do have it open, but I minimized it. I'm really quickly going to send this over to my brain and find the right home or location for this content later. I don't have time right now. It's information on the go. So I'm going to click the BrainBox button. Let's talk a little bit about this button, this extension in my Chrome browser. You can go to www.thebrain.com/brainbox, and we'll put that actually up on the recording so people can find it really quickly. And there are instructions there on how to install the BrainBox extension. Sometimes they call it other names depending on the browser. But in Chrome, it's your Chrome extension, BrainBox browser. We've got one for Firefox, IE, and so forth. And when I click this button, I am sending this URL, as you can see, into my BrainBox. And there, it's done already. I'm moving on to my next project, and I know I've preserved this data to be reviewed at a later date. So now let's go grab it. Let's go back to the brain. I'm going to open up my eSolutions brain, and I happen to be browsing through my brain, and I come to in my future investments, ubiquitous computing. I found an article about that the other day. I sent it to BrainBox. Time to go grab it. Here's the BrainBox icon, and you can see when I click, it gives me all of the different items that I've sent into BrainBox. And you may have, if you're paying close attention, you may have noticed when I first opened, it hadn't refreshed yet. It refreshed and added the 10 tech trends that will transform your world right there at the top. That's that article from Forbes that I wanted to bring into the brain. And now it's time to do that. Now, I can click and, review this content, rename it, and so forth. I just recently added this. I know exactly what it is. So I am going to, let me click away from it there. I'm going to click the little plus sign. So this will create it as a child thought. The paperclip would add the link onto this thought. I just want a child thought for ubiquitous computing. It's been moved out of my brain box and into this particular thought as a child thought of my current active thought in the brain. So that's how, and you can see I've got other sourdough bread recipes there. I see sourdough standing out and other woodworking projects. So this is my real brain box. I send things into BrainBox from my phone. We'll do that in a moment, from the web, all the time. So a great way to capture information when you're in a hurry, or if you don't happen to have your brain open, or you don't know what you're going to do with it yet. This looks really interesting. Here I've got an article on Coinbase, cryptocurrency. Am I going to invest in cryptocurrency? I don't know. Let's think about that. I'll send it into BrainBox. And so once again, I just click, it goes right into BrainBox, and I can get back to that at a later date. But we can go one step further than that. I can actually send it to a specific location. I do have a thought in my brain called Bitcoin/crypto. So if I know where I want to save something, now I already sent this to BrainBox, but I'm going to click on it again. And this time I'm going to click on the options button. And there's a lot that you can do here in this, this options window that pops up. And I'm going to share just a few of them with you. First and foremost, from here, once again, I can add this into my BrainBox. There's add, and there's a little lightning bolt. Lightning bolt will just add it and close the window and take you back to where you're browsing. Clicking on add, it will show you in the web client this thought and where it is, whether it's in BrainBox or if you have sent it to a specific location in a specific brain, which you can do now with what we call BrainBox Ultra. So I'm actually going to create this new thought as a child of my my Bitcoin crypto thought. Now you can see the last time I sent something directly to a thought, it was to Aldo Leopold in my rainforest research brain. That's not where I want to send Coinbase. So I'm going to click, and once again, I'm going back to that cross-brain searching feature that exists here in the web client as well. So if I do a search for Bitcoin/crypto, there it is in my eSolutions brain. I have a thought called Bitcoin crypto. I'm going to select that. And when I click on that lightning bolt, it's going to send it directly to that specific thought, being a child of that specific thought. So if I go back to my brain and I go to Bitcoin crypto, this is my local brain on my desktop. You're not going to see it yet because the sync hasn't kicked in. The sync is set to kick in automatically every 3 to 5 minutes. I'll just go ahead and force a sync. I'll click on the button. So it was sent to the web client as a child thought of Bitcoin crypto. And now when my desktop brain syncs, I see it here on the desktop. And if you remember, I sent it to just my brain box as well. So it's sitting there in my brain box. I don't need it there. I sent it to the thought that I really did need it. So I can click and I can delete that, keep my brain box clean and tidy. There's another feature that I want to share with you. And sometimes you don't need the entire web page, or you want to preserve that content because the web page could change. You know, here I am on, what is this? Nanotechnology on the Wikipedia page. Some amazing breakthrough in nanotechnology could happen tomorrow, and all of this information changes. I want to preserve it as it exists right now. I want to archive this information. And you can do that on, news-based web pages where the news is changing all the time or being updated at least and so forth. But you want to preserve that data. It's really valuable. And maybe I even want to, here's a picture that I like. So I'm going to grab this picture and actually a lot of content. So the sort of the first like 1/10 of this page. I don't need all the rest. I just need that quick overview. So I've selected that on the web page. Now I'm going to click on the icon and go into options because it saved my previous preferences. It was about to send this over to Bitcoin crypto. That's not where it goes. It is going to be appended to a thought called nanotechnology. So I've got a few nanotechnology thoughts, but there's the one in eSolutions. That's the brain I'm in. That's the one I want. I select that. And as you can see down below, it's preserving the note, the graphics, the hyperlinks, and so forth. All of that will be on the note of eSolutions nanotechnology. So I want to append it to that thought rather than creating a child thought with this content. So it adds itself onto the existing thought. If I want the whole web page, I can keep it there. I can uncheck this. I don't need the web page. I just need the text that I selected to be on the note for this thought. And once again, I hit that lightning bolt and there it goes. I'm going to come back to the brain over to nanotechnology and I'm going to sync, and all of that content that I've added is being appended to this thought. And notice right at the top, I already had a note, my next focus. So if you have existing content, you're not overwriting it, you're appending. So it adds it down below, nanotechnology. I've got my graphics, I've got the table that it created and so forth. Just what I selected off of that Wikipedia page has been added into the note. A really, really great feature. And now that I have that setting, I'm going to go back one more time. Let's grab another thought on nanotechnology. I've got a few examples. When I click this BrainBox, I'll go into options again to show you why it's about to do the exact same thing it did previously. And that is because I have this option checked at the very top. Hide these options next time. So in other words, if I uncheck this, it will always come to this window and allow me to customize where this data is going. If I am deeply focused on nanotechnology now and for the next 3 or 4 hours, and everything that I find that I like, I want it to be created as a child of nanotechnology in the eSolutions brain. I'll then check this box. I set everything up. I make sure the box is checked, and I'll go ahead and actually close this and go back to that web page. There it is. And I click the button and it automatically becomes a child thought of nanotechnology, blah, blah, blah. And it does that without having to modify that content. So it's really great for setting up a workflow. You know what you're focused on. You're sending everything into the same brain in the same area. Make sure those settings are there. And then as you're doing your research, boom, 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 it always goes there. And at any time, you can click on that options button to change it. If you stumble across a different website of something completely different that's not going into nanotechnology, you can easily make that adjustment. So all of that information, once again, is here under nanotechnology. If I click on that sync, first it goes to the web client and then it comes to my local brain. So there's that web page that loads up. I can watch that video right here. By loading up that web page, and I've got the text of the web page. Now, web pages, they're formatted in so many different ways. If you do select to add a note, that content to a note of the brain, it does its best to preserve that information. But as you can see, it's not always formatted exactly the way you want it because web pages can be formatted so differently. So you can always come back and make your adjustments at a later date. It did a pretty good job on the Wikipedia. This page, there's obviously some JavaScript and things at play there. So it didn't load up, but luckily I preserved the whole web page and I can load that up in the content area of the brain for easy access as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it sends this information to your web client. And then when your desktop syncs, you have it here. If you want to see this on the web client, or if you're on the go and you don't have time to log into the app, or maybe you're opening, this happens to me from time to time, I need information from a brain. And the closest thing within my reach is my kid's Chromebook. So I grab the Chromebook and I go to app.thebrain.com. So this particular brain, I am actually going to click on online, open thought in web client. This brain is syncing up to the brain cloud. And so everything that goes into this brain appears and is accessible for me on the cloud. This is truly information on the go because um, anywhere where I can get to the web, if I can get online, I can get to any of my brain databases that I have and that I have synced. So I've got easy access to all that information under future investments that I've just created right here from the web client. And even if I don't have the desktop open, I'm in the web client and I remember, oh, I sent something into BrainBox earlier. I can actually go to a particular thought. I think it was the Bitcoin crypto. We'll go back there. And if I want to add some content or review what I have in my brain box, I can click, oh, I already added that. So it's no longer in my list. But here's my brain box list. There, I've got a kayak seat. So I can go to my other brain with kayaking and, add that thought in from the web client just as easily as I can from the desktop as well. You can also do this from mobile devices. So now's the time to minimize my browser entirely and bring up, I've got a little mirroring system for my iPhone. So here's my iPhone. It's plugged in right now. I've got it in front of me. And as I click, we're back into my recreational brain. As I tap from, thought to thought, I can go to all these thoughts. I can open up the note. And so this is the iOS app. We have an iOS app available. We have an Android app available. If for whatever reason you don't want to install the app, you can simply log into, open up a browser, and I can log into app.thebrain.com and access this brain as well. And of course, right there at the bottom, again, is my brain box. So though that's the content of my brain box, there's that kayaking thought. So I'm on my kayak thought. And if I go to supplies, I'm thinking about building a custom seat. And I found a note on a cheaper option of just buying a custom seat for under 20 bucks. I am going to attach custom seat to this particular thought. So now in the notes, you can see I've got that. It went to BrainBox and now I found the right place for it, the right home for it right here in my brain from my iOS app. And this is what I really, really want to share with you because this is how a lot, and Shelly, I think I can speak for you too. This is how my BrainBox gets most of its content is because I browse the web from my phone. If I am in a taxi or I'm on a plane or what have you, I've got my phone out and maybe I'm browsing the web. And when I find something I like, that wants to open the Amazon app. We could do it from the Amazon app too. You can see I was shopping for some new readers recently. I found this pair that I really like. I want to consider it. So this is how, when you find any type of content on a web page that you like from your iPhone, I just tap or press on that share button. So obviously I can share this with, there's my wife and kids as links. I can send an email, but if I scroll down and see the other options, there it is. Here, I'll highlight it on the screen. Add to BrainBox. There's no extra that you need to install on your iOS device. If you've installed the Brain for iOS, that add to BrainBox will be there. Even if you decide in the future, I'm going to just use app.thebrain.com when I'm on my iOS or Android device. If you install the app and just don't even use it, you've installed BrainBox. So the BrainBox functionality is there. So I tap add to BrainBox. And those new readers have been added to my BrainBox. It works for any web page. I could go web page to web page here and show you, but it's all the same. There's that share button. And sometimes apps have their own share button. Here's one just right there within, anytime you see that box with an arrow, that's a share button. And BrainBox is going to be an option. So if I do a search for other kayak, we'll do paddles now. So I do a search for a kayak paddle and I find a really interesting kayak paddle, great price. It's an Amazon pick, looks good. And as you can see, there's the icon here in the web page of Amazon. I can tap that as well. And I get, they don't give you the exact same results, but as you can see, BrainBox is there. So I can press and add that into my BrainBox as well. So now from my iPhone, if I'm accessing the app, and do I have paddle here? Under supplies. Yes, kayak paddle. So I'll click to go into, whoops, that's the note. I'll tap to go into my BrainBox, and it just takes a moment to refresh. That'll add in. I think it was syncing in the background. Yeah, it's still syncing. So let's come to my desktop. I'm back on my desktop with my brain. And if I go to my kayak paddle, it is kayak paddle. And I'll click that BrainBox icon. There it is. Eco frames. There's the Amazon. That's the kayak paddle. If I don't know what that is, I know what it is because I just added it. I can click this button to preview it. There it is. That is the kayak paddle. And so I want to add that as a child thought in my brain. And then I can get back and rename this Amazon. Great. So I've added that information in. And as we've said, as we've talked about, all this information going into your brain, it's now there. It's preserved for you over time. Your own organic brain doesn't have to keep track of this. You've offloaded it into that trusted source. I can search in this brain for things that I've done years and years ago, but suddenly it's back on the radar. Family is gonna go on a hike in Zion National Park this summer. So if I do Zion hiking, if I could spell hiking correctly, there we go. Zion hiking, there it is, a Zion hiking map from when my family went, I think back in 2018 is when we were last there. But I've preserved that information. I have easy access to that. And it's not just data storage, it is creating a knowledge base of your data. I've got this nanotechnology that I've just started researching. I've got other clients in this brain that are experts in nanotechnology. If I do a search for nanotechnology in this particular brain, I can see I've got other thoughts. What is nanotechnology? I thought I had, maybe I called it nanotech. Let's take technology off of there, nanotech. There we go. I've got some additional information on nanotech. And one of them is a company, Citration, which is a company that we've worked with in the past. And I've got all of their theories on nanotechnology, our meeting notes, projects we worked on, people that I've worked with, Fred Baxter that worked on this client account. I have extra resources that I can tap into that are easily accessible to me related back to my own project of introducing some nanotechnology development into my organization. So I'm going to link this as a jump thought over to nanotechnology that I am researching. So anytime I get to a stumbling block or something like that, I can easily look up additional resources that I have in this brain. And that's how that, those cross references to other related pieces of information come into play as your brain continues to grow and evolve over time. So I hope that we've given you some really great ideas on how to capture your information on the go. No idea is static, and it shouldn't be stored in a static file and folder directory. You need to get it into your brain for further development and understanding of that information over time. And with that, Shelley, do we have any questions that came up of additional features that we want to see demoed?
Oh yeah, we're having quite a party here in Q&A. We have a
All right.
number of questions. A lot on actually what a couple users are referring to is large language models, or AI. So in terms of that, I guess we did cover how to utilize the brain. So if you want to build a taxonomy, an automatic taxonomy, somebody was interested in building a course, AI is absolutely fantastic. In fact, my stock portfolio section was mostly built from AI in the first brain that we demoed. So maybe a little bit more. Was there a little bit more on AI? And then
Sure.
somebody else had a question on whether they can utilize additional AIs. We also have an API for our software. Take advantage of the Brain's AI. It's Chat GPT. It's literally what most people, including Apple and all the big tech giants, think is the best premier on the market. But that being said, if you want to augment the Brain's features, you should look at our API.
Mhm.
Out of the box, though, you are getting a very strong AI component. So maybe just a quick review on how to build your own taxonomy to go
Sure.
back in some of these questions utilizing AI.
Sure. So I used this as an example earlier, ubiquitous computers. I found an article, dropped it in. I really don't understand yet what a ubiquitous computer is. I can create a note that would explain this to me. So over in the notes, I can say, all right, generate a note on ubiquitous computers. Or I can create an entire taxonomy, a data structure on different topics and subtopics involving ubiquitous computers, and then develop notes on those individual thoughts. So I'll start with the taxonomy. I'll click on AI. Ubiquitous computers is the subject matter. I can play around with the creativity. Do I want the brain to sort of think outside the box, or just straight zero creativity? Just give me the facts. The default setting here, 70, seems to work out well for me. But that's the great thing about AI. You never know what you're going to get. And that's also why we give you those options that you may have noticed. I pointed out, I believe, where you can accept it, you can redo it, change your terminology, change the settings that you have here, change the language if you're a multicultural organization and you want to get the folks over in Germany working on ubiquitous computing. Okay, here's a note in German on ubiquitous computing, take it and run. So a lot that you can do here. I'll generate a full thought structure. I'll still keep any child thoughts I have below this thought, but I've got a new structure being generated on ubiquitous computers.
And I
And we'll
think in
see what it
terms of
creates.
the
Mhm.
mode, for me, the most important decision I make in utilizing the Brain's AI is whether I do a category or a list
Yeah,
taxonomy generation. So once we do this, Matt had selected categories. We can kind of talk about both. Categories is great if you want to create that broad level of taxonomies. List mode, when you select the mode, gives you more specifics, like maybe I just want inventors from the 1950s, give me names. Then I'd select list mode. So that's another particular area you can play with to really refine what AI is giving you in the brain.
absolutely. And so here you can see I've got quantum computing, quantum cryptography, quantum supremacy. We're getting into things that I really don't know a whole lot about, but it went pretty deep here, down into the into this topic. That's fantastic. I can accept that, and again, start building my information from there. Now, if I have something very general, like we'll say computer companies. And this speaks to the question that Shelley received about the differences between lists and categories. Categories of computer companies. There's personal computer companies. There's probably companies that focus more on servers and things of that nature. But there's also just straight up, Apple, Microsoft, Dell, and so forth. So let's see what happens if I say computer companies. And if I said categories, again, I could have US computer companies, international computer companies, all these different categories that computer companies fall into, as opposed to a list. And we'll just generate some child thoughts. So one level deep. And hopefully I'll just see specifically. I didn't see what I had expected. I thought I would have seen Microsoft, Dell, and so forth. Well, that is why we have the redo button. Let's try it again. I want, oh, maybe I didn't check it. A list.
And then you can say, name me
Yeah.
specifics. Sometimes I go back up there. It is Chat GPT. So you kind of have to play with it like you do
Yeah.
on Chat GPT and get
Yeah.
what you need. And then it's going to
And
get specific into the listing those companies in those
it
categories.
is.
So,
Yeah. And so I could even say, use existing thoughts as an example. So there's Dell, we'll say IBM, International business machines, and Apple are three that come to mind in my head. Now I'll go back to AI. And so you could see, you could really play around with this. AI is, I often say it's like having a really smart friend with no filter. You don't know what you're going to get. So we try it out again. Once again, I'll say list. And this time I'm checking another feature, use children as context. And let's see what it creates for us.
There
There
we
we
go.
go. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I expected to see. HP, Gateway, Toshiba, Sony. Okay, this is what I was looking for. I just had to give it a little nudge in the right direction, and AI followed suit. I'll accept that and go from there. So if you want to know more about the AI, there's also some great tutorials and videos on at thebrain.com/AI. And we go into the many details of the drop-down features and what they do. You know, we could talk for another hour about all the ways to adjust your existing notes using AI. There's some fantastic features there. But also, someone asked about which AI are you using. If I click on online and go to, or excuse me, options and preferences, if I was on a Mac, I would click on the brain preferences. And on experimental, you can see there's a couple of different drop-down options for which AI to use. This evolves as AI is evolving. So I think this was updated 2 or 3 weeks ago when GPT-4 Turbo came out, which is why this needed to be updated. And you can also use your own custom open AI API
All right.
key.
Well, that was the
There we go.
question as far as custom. So they actually don't need
Yeah.
to use the API. They could actually go into settings. Somebody did have their own
Yeah,
AI
they're
that they
open.
wanted
If
to
you've got
utilize.
your
Okay.
open, yeah. And if you do want the API, I like to get there by, there's a link on the blog, an article that the Brain CTO Harlan Hugh wrote. And the quickest way there for me is to go about and blog and introducing the Brain API. So if you do want to know more about the API and using the Brain as the interface for software that you're writing or what have you, there's a lot you can do here. And feel free to click around, play around. And there's a whole user community on the Brain forums that are talking about how they're using the Brain API and sharing code and ideas. Obviously, you've got to have a little bit of the skill set of Blazor, Python, and so forth to understand exactly how the Brain API works. But there it is. Feel free and have fun, and keep us posted if you got something you want to share with us, how you use the Brain API for your own projects. We'd love to hear about it.
All right, great. And we have a question from Peter. Is it possible to add free text, any idea to the brain box without referring to an existing thought? And what would the alternative be? And actually, that's why the brain box exists, Peter.
Yeah.
You can just put things in your brain box. You don't have to put them anywhere. So sometimes the burden of categorization can be overwhelming and sometimes even a deterrent for getting your stuff in. That's kind of the main reason that BrainBox started. So I'm on the go. I have no idea where this is going to go. It's really interesting. Boom, it's going in my BrainBox.
Yeah.
And earlier, when my first brain, where we talked about creating dynamic spaces for idea management, I like to have a thought in my brain called percolating, ideas simmering, or new thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You can also just type as a free form note. There's no limit
That's a
on
great idea.
the long form note. So it's kind of interesting because we have such an amazing patent pending scalable interface that a lot of our attention does go to that. But you can literally just use the brain as a journal or note as well and do very little categorization. I've seen some very interesting brains with 10 thoughts and just a lot of notes, and people utilizing BrainBox. So, and of course, then you've got Jerry's brain, which I put the link out because somebody was interested in healthcare and he has a very comprehensive healthcare section. We might want to pull that up. But so you can go from very simple to very complex in the software. It's really about what works for you.
Right.
And then on that sort of vein of talking about scalability, man, we had several people ask about how to switch from Evernote and import into the brain. a couple people on certain mind mapping programs. So we need to maybe spend a little bit of time talking about how to import data into the brain
Sure.
from other systems, like through XML, through the file folder management.
Yeah.
And just to remind everyone that you can drag and drop unique URLs. So let's say you wanted to keep Evernote. Don't keep Evernote, but if you want to keep Evernote, you can drag and drop a link. No, and that's fine too, because like our corporate users, a lot of links to SharePoint too, and then the brain becomes the remote control. So
Hmm.
we're actually data agnostic. So, if you want to keep your stuff in SharePoint, OneNote, all over the place, and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to because somebody else in your team is using it, that's where the drag and drop of that relative path, that URL, is going to come into play.
Yeah.
But we had several questions on importing from those systems in the brain. So maybe in
Yeah.
broad strokes,
Sure. Sure.
Matt, you can cover that. And I did want to reference to everyone that we offer free support for all users. So if you have specific migration goals, I would absolutely chat into our website and work with one of our brain technicians to help you get that done. We'll
Yeah,
do that. It'll be a
absolutely.
live human for now, helping you through that migration process.
Yes. And to the first note that you had about, just sending something to BrainBox without
Mm-hmm.
specifying a thought,
Yes. Let's get back to that, Peter.
that's the
Yes.
default setting. So when
Okay.
I click on that BrainBox button, it's going to go to BrainBox. It doesn't even open this window that you see right now unless I click on that options button. So it just gets sent into your BrainBox. And then you saw my BrainBox list of some woodworking and different recipes and stuff. And I just simply haven't organized those yet. It's there. I've got it. I captured it, and I'll link it when I have time or when I'm ready. So that is the default setting. Jerry's Brain, go to www.jerrysbrain.com and click on Launch Jerry's Brain. And it is an amazing brain about everything. Every topic we've covered today, kayaks, nanotechnology, everything. If I do a search here in Jerry's Brain, I'm going to find it. It's
You can do
absolutely
healthcare
amazing.
management, and
Healthcare
I
management.
put that because it's kind of funny. A lot of people obviously want examples on, how do I create my brain. So one attendee was very interested in creating a brain for healthcare management. I'm like, I don't know if I have any live examples that I can share. We have a lot of companies using the brain for healthcare management and healthcare research,
Yeah.
but they're confidential. But the thing that's so great about Jerry's brain is he's made all his knowledge publicly accessible. So within this little healthcare area, and you can also expand the screen, put that full screen, you can probably find a nice example. And then the other thing you can do if you're prototyping on a very new topic, I would use Jerry's brain. I would also get AI to create me a sample brain. And that's not to say you're going to be copying or using exactly all the thoughts in Jerry's brain or for AI for that matter. But that will give you a couple frames of reference to then think, okay, I like this. I like what AI's done here. Now I can create my own, or I can also modify what the AI has
Yeah.
done. So there's a lot of possibilities for
Yeah.
prototyping and
Yeah.
kind of starting from scratch.
And there we go. Nanotech for health. It's right there. So you can see Jerry has just a few topics on healthcare, just a few,
Yeah, just a few.
to get the creative juices flowing.
Only like
But
100,000 topics and links.
so it's all there.
Um,
Yeah, jerrysbrain.com. And then and this is online. Everyone has I don't have special access to this brain. This is a public brain. It's read only access. And you can do that with your brains as well. If you sync a brain to the cloud, you can make it publicly accessible so that if you share the URL, that person can go and browse through your a brain that you've created online. It's an option. You don't have to share your brain.
and of course, you
And
can share your brain with Team Brain privately.
absolutely.
Somebody else had a question about the brain for teams,
Mhm.
Team Brain, and that's all my brains that I've demoed. I think Matt's as well. You can actually have a team brain and assign
Mhm.
different people different levels of access control to your
Yeah.
brain and sync across our secure cloud to go ahead and share that information. So the thing that's nice is if you have a bunch of documents and instead of dumping them in a single folder where everyone's like, what's this? What do I do with this? You can create that context. You can add that note to that file. You can link it to its relevant business process. That's very powerful. That's beyond the scope of this webinar, but because somebody asked the question about the brain for
Sure.
teams, I wanted to make sure we got that. And then I actually want to circle back to Dave's question. He said, we saw BrainBox, but what about Web Clipper? Did we miss Web Clipper, or did Web
No, I
Clipper
did
just
Web
happen?
Clipper.
Okay,
I'll do
let's go
that.
back
I'll
to
do
Web
that at
Clipper.
next. Yeah, I'll do that
Let's
again.
go back to
Absolutely.
Web Clipper.
So first,
Web
let's go
Clipper
back to
is
import.
okay, import.
And
Yes, we've
there's
got
the imports. Yeah.
lots to cover.
We got a
Okay.
lot of questions coming in, and that's
Yeah.
great. So if you click on File, Import, you can see all of the different options that we have. If you have an application, obviously we can't make this just a never-ending list of all the other apps out there in the world that you can import into. But if you can take whatever is in that app, you know, the question of Evernote came up, for example. Everything that goes into
OneNote,
Evernote
actually.
or OneNote, yeah,
OneNote, yeah.
they all have URLs. Everything has a URL associated with it. So you can like, I want to create a brain that's all about these different things in OneNote. That's much like a list that I have. You can individually bring those into the brain. If you can export your content into a file and folder directory, you can import a folder into the brain. Every folder becomes a thought, every file becomes an attachment, and then you can start adding notes and continue growing that information in the brain structure. Other mind map applications out there can be imported. These recently, you know, someone recently mentioned, hey, they just upgraded their software so that instead of being limited to, I can't remember what the exact numbers were, 1,000 thoughts, now you can have 15,000 thoughts. The brain is no limits mind mapping. A lot of folks come over from FreeMind or Mind Manager because they hit that cap. They can't add anything more. They need to start a new mind map. You can merge those, you know, if you've got two different mind maps, you can merge them together. Jerry's brain has close to 1 million thoughts. You can go over 1 million thoughts. If you've got that many ideas, I'm sure you're out there.
Yeah, there's actually no limit. So we
no
don't put
limit mind
limits
That's
like
right.
Evernote or some of these other technologies. We have we're infinitely scalable. One of the cool things about the dynamic reconfiguration and why we differ also from like the flat-based mind map is we're database driven. So this is why we have Department of Defense, Jerry, all kinds of large organizations visualizing hundreds of thousands of items, because every time you click on an item in the brain, it's actually querying the database and it's dynamically bringing back that result set. So it's not a flat piece of paper. And then actually to that point, somebody early asked about synchronizing, not through our secure cloud, which is by far the best way to go. It's our encrypted, very secure, but they wanted to utilize their own server software. So for anyone who's on the call today that has a large organization, we do have TeamBrain server where you can create an environment that's completely behind your own firewalls, if that's something that you want to do as well. And then the flip side of the cloud is we also have offline mode where a lot of field service agents and people for whatever reason that don't want to sync, you can still get that scalability like literally on your desktop, untethered, unconnected. So honestly, whichever way you want to go, what works for you. If you actually want information on the go though, you need to sync to our cloud to utilize our mobile technology, which is fabulous. But there are lots of possibilities there as well.
And the app, interestingly enough, I was flying this past weekend and the airline that I was on didn't have internet, if you could believe it or not. They made an announcement. We're so sorry. We have no internet.
How did you survive?
I opened up the brain, which works fine offline as well as online. So yeah, just, you know, if I lost internet now, you wouldn't be able to see my screen. The brain would still work. The application, the installation of the brain still works. And then when you get back to the modern world where internet exists, sync your brain, the auto sync will kick off in the background. Any changes you've made will be uploaded to the cloud and to the other devices that you're syncing to, and all will be well again. So yes, you can use your brain online, sharing, offline, many different options. And the question came up, also you had an earlier question, Shelley, about, we talked about the import, but the web clipping. The web clipping
somebody wanted to see Web Clipper again. So let's make a an encore appearance of Web Clipper because it
Sure.
might have gotten overshone, or I guess BrainBox probably kind of usurped it. So
Well, yeah,
within
there's a
BrainBox,
lot
there's the
happening
Web
in
Clipper.
BrainBox. Yeah,
So
a
yeah,
lot
let's go
happening. And
because I
you
know
still,
web
yeah,
clipping is
yeah,
very popular for people using notes apps, and everyone's like,
absolutely.
"Oh, you have a web clipper? I didn't know that." So
Yeah,
first of all, you can drag and drop any URL into the Brain, but if you actually want to do clipping, that's also very easy as
that's
well.
right. And you know what? I want a graphic with this one too. So let's say I grab, this with the graphic, and that's the information that I want off of this website. Now we're still going to use BrainBox, but we're going to just use it a little bit differently. In this case, I've selected some content. It's got graphics, it's got text. That is what I want to preserve in my brain. So I'm going to click on the BrainBox icon and go into the options, because I don't want to just send that into BrainBox. I want to send it to my ubiquitous computing thought. And so I will make this I'll actually append it to, not nanotechnology, ubiquitous, if I can spell this right. There it is, eSolutions Ubiquitous Computer. So this box right here at the very bottom, as you can see, there's a checkbox so you can include the selected text, graphics or whatever it is, and that will be added to the note.
As a note, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a key thing because so many times, as we talked about earlier, web pages change. Some new technology comes out and it overwrites all the old information that used to be on Wikipedia. You want to preserve what's happening right now, the information that's available. You want to preserve this web page in case that web page ever goes away or what have you. So just check this box. You can see I've got a list of check boxes here. Do I want the thought name, which is the article name from the web page, the URL? I can choose whether I want to include those or not. But this is the web clipping because I selected that text. It automatically thinks, oh, Matt is just after this information, which is exactly what I want, this ubiquitous computing. I'm appending it to this thought, and I click on the lightning bolt because I'm in a big hurry, and it gets sent directly to that brain, to that specific thought. I've clipped that information. And if I go back into let me make this a little bit larger. There it is. There's that ubiquitous computers thought. And I'm going to sync this. I could sit here and wait for sync to kick off in the background every 3 to 5 minutes. I click on that
There it
button
is.
and there it is. So that information preserved. That web page could disappear, but I've preserved the graphic. I've preserved the information. I'm storing all of this information locally. I have my own copy, even if that web page is gone in the future. So that's the web clipping feature. You're still utilizing the BrainBox button, the BrainBox extension in your browser, but instead of capturing the entire web page, you're capturing key information that you're after, and you're archiving it in your brain for the future.
All right, great. And first of all, I want to let you know we are on the hour. So we're going to go another just 5 minutes and into overtime. There's a few more questions that popped up that I want to get to. But for those of you that do have to leave on the hour, I want to thank you for joining us and let you know, as I did in the Q&A, we will have this recorded. And for those of you that can stay, we're going to do maybe another 4 or 5 minutes, a few more questions coming in. So thank you to all of you, whether you're still on the call or leaving now. All
All
right.
right.
And then there was one earlier question. We were going to end on this question. RD, like the simpler, cleaner brain, we will make the first one that I did on dynamic spaces for idea management. We will make that public. So you have
Mm-hmm.
like just a basic canvas to get started. In terms of other examples, we have a page of brain examples, and you can also join us for the Brain 101. We do them every second week. We're on our summer schedule now. I'm not sure if
Yep.
we have one
We do.
tomorrow. You have one
Yes.
tomorrow. Oh, great.
Yeah.
So if we haven't got to your question, or you have more nuanced questions that you want demoed, and that's a great time to join. So you can join us tomorrow. And I think that's it. Any final words of wisdom for Ideas Unleashed and Ideas on the Go, Matt?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. We covered a lot of information. Thank you for bringing up 101. If any of this seems like it was too much, it's information on the go. So we were on the go today with our information delivery. If any of it seemed too much, please feel free to join me tomorrow for the Brain 101. We'll slow things down and talk about the basic features, but also the class sizes are typically, they're not in the hundreds as they are for these larger webinars. Class sizes are much smaller, and I typically get through all the questions that you may have. So it's a great opportunity to sort of, not exactly be one-on-one with me, but have my full attention, ask any additional questions, and, I'll demo features from there in Brain 101. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you unlock your mobile genius using our online tools as well as our desktop version and never let a good idea go to waste. Hope to see you again on future Brain Technologies events. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.